Japanese people are amongst the most emotional people I know. They're very emotional, but they're very good at hiding it. But if you give them a couple of beers, a little bit of sake, and say, let's talk about this, they will go to town.
You don't usually speak English living in Japan?
In my everyday life, I speak English with my family. But of course, outside of my family, my life is almost 100% Japanese. You know, my job, everybody I work with, they're all Japanese. So yeah, I've been studying Japanese for, let me think here, 47 years, 46 or 47 years now.
Damn.
I began studying Japanese before there were Japanese textbooks.
What's your name?
Oh, sorry, Daniel Kahl. I'm from Southern California. I'm a Dodger fan.
And how long have you been in Japan again?
Altogether, some 44 or 45 years, I think now. I graduated in 1981, and I've been here basically since then. I mean, I go back to America for about a month every year, and especially when my parents were still alive, I would try to go back to America as often as possible. But you know, with Corona these last few years, it's been quite difficult. But fortunately, recently, I can go back again. So, yeah, I go back. I practice my English over there, and then I come back here.
And what have you done professionally? What do you do now around Tokyo?
My job?
Yeah.
Well, I've been working in the television industry over here in Japan since 1989, I think it was. Right, just about when the bubble started bursting, the economic bubble.
I wasn't born.
You're way too young. Oh, that's right. God, you're younger than my son. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. So you don't remember the bubble at all, do you?
I have never experienced it.
Oh boy, I have a billion stories to tell you. But anyway, yeah. Now you can tell how old I really am. But I've been on TV since 1989. So 36 years ago I started, and I was really busy for the first 20 to 25 years. Very, very busy.
That's a long shot.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say, you know, my career is over, but I really had a good run. For 25 years, I was busy as all heck. And I traveled all over this country. I did so many different television programs, you know, food programs, gourmet programs, and travel programs, travelogues. I also did some very serious reporting on Japanese elections and Japanese crime and Japanese, you know, accidents around Japan and things like that, where people were suing each other for stuff. Those are hard reporting jobs. I didn't really enjoy them, but they were important. You know, I don't really like hearing about people's tragedies, you know, but sometimes you do have to listen to those too. But I enjoyed the gourmet programs and the travelogues, you know, and I did a lot of radio, did a lot of TV. I've even been in 2 movies in Japan. I've been in two movies, yeah.
I didn't know about that.
Oh, okay. Well, in let's see, 1991, which is still before you were born, I was in a movie called Godzilla versus King Ghidorah.
Oh.
I was in one of the Godzilla movies, and I was only 31 years old at the time, but I looked like I was about 21. I looked really young in the movie, and I was an officer in the U.S. Navy, and we saw a UFO. And the second movie I was in was just a couple of years ago. I was in Fukushima 50, which is a movie about the earthquake in 2011 and the resulting power plant's accident, the meltdown in Fukushima. And I played an American military officer. I played the guy who was in charge of Tomodachi Sakusen, and or Operation Tomodachi, as they call it in English. And that was really a great job. I mean, I was so honored to be a member of that cast with Watanabe Ken-san and some very, very high-powered Japanese actors. And we got to film, actually, parts of that movie on Yokota Base, the U.S. Air Force base here close to Tokyo. And that was the first time ever that a Japanese film crew had been allowed into Yokota base, and we were like the first ones to be involved with that. And I met so many fabulous people, all these American servicemen, airmen, and we talked, and they showed me around the base, and it was a great job. It was a fascinating job. I really enjoyed that. But we produced that in 2019. I think it came out right at the beginning of 2020. And of course, Corona got in the way of that because people weren't supposed to go to the movie theaters that time. So it could have won some awards, but the timing was really bad, unfortunately.
What's the movie called again? Fukushima 50?
It's called Fukushima 50, both in English and in Japanese.
Right, okay.
And you can get it on video, and it might be on demand somewhere on TV too.
Wow.
But yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What got you into entertainment industry in the first place?
I'm sorry, what?
What got you into entertainment industry for the first place?
Yeah, everybody asks me that, but it's just it was just luck. It was a fluke.
Did you always want to get in?
No. I was running a translation company at the time, and I was also running sort of an English education program through our company as well. We had customers all over Tokyo we were dealing with, and I was a businessman, and I had been doing that job for about 10 years, or not quite 10 years, but and while I was doing that, I got involved with a television program just tangentially, and they enjoyed me talking so much because I spoke with the Yamagata Ben. I was talking in Japanese, but I was talking with the Yamagata men. They said, this guy is really weird. They thought they've never heard anybody speak Yamagata Ben, an American speak Yamagata dialect. And they were so impressed that they asked me to come be on another program. And those people asked me to be on another program, and it just one thing led to another, and I started getting busier and busier, and then I got involved with an agency who worked as the manager for several what they call gaikokujin talento, gaitare, or foreign talents in Japan. I worked for the same agency as Kent Gilbert and Chuck Wilson, several others. Again, you're young, you probably don't remember too many of these guys.
I've heard of the names.
You've heard the names, yeah. I suppose. Yeah, because they were really, really famous at the time, and we're still friends, all of us. We get together once in a while for TV programs, and hey, how you been, kind of thing. But we are sort of amongst the old hands of Japan, kind of the old Japan experts types. When I was young and I came here and I stayed much longer than almost everybody else that I know, I guess that was my goal. I wanted to be a Japan expert because at that time there were no Japan experts. I figured that becoming a Japan expert would be a great way to find work and get a really interesting job, really interesting career. And, one thing led to another, and it definitely has been an interesting career so far.
What was the very first reason for you to come to Japan?
The original motivation to come to Japan was, one, I had Japanese American friends, and so, I would go to their house, and they would, their houses are decorated differently than, like Caucasian American homes. Like Japanese American families have, just things that are Japanese in their home, and I was kind of fascinated by that. And also my Japanese American friends, and also my Korean American friends, we all did karate together. We studied kung fu and taekwondo and stuff like that. So we were really interested in martial arts, and that got me really interested in coming to Japan. I wanted to come here and do martial arts, and I did. I came here and I did judo for several years, and it's a great individual sport. So I really enjoyed that. And while I was practicing judo, I learned the language. I learned about Japanese art, Japanese Buddhism, Japanese culture in general, especially the shokubunka, especially the cuisine. And and then I found a nice lady over here that I got married to, and after a couple of years, we had a kid, and one thing led to another, and I've been here for 40 some odd years.
Beautiful story. How did you start learning Japanese?
Well, I came to Japan when I was 17. I wanted to learn more karate. So I came over here as an exchange student. And when I got to the school, obviously I didn't speak any Japanese at all. But I had studied German in America in my high school. And so I knew how to study a foreign language. And I knew that the first thing I had to do was learn a lot of vocabulary. And so I listened to the students around me. And I listened really hard because I didn't know any Japanese at all, but I could identify certain words which came up frequently. And then I would write them down in English or in Roman letters, and then I would try to look up those words in a dictionary later to see what they meant. Right. So, like, for example, when everybody's talking, they would say like sensei, and I'd go, what is sensei? And I look it up, and it means teacher. Go, oh, they're talking about the teacher. That makes sense. Or and they would also say things like omae and stuff like that. What the heck is omae? And that means, well, that's a crude way to say you, for example, So I picked up a lot of vocabulary in the first few months, and then I just sort of, I just sort of lined them up in different orders to see what would work. And it was really hard, and people laughed at me a lot because my Japanese was so bad in the beginning. But I was only 17. I really didn't care if anybody laughed at me or anything. So I just kept going and going and going. And after 1 year in living in Japan and using nothing but Japanese every day, I learned quite a bit. I was not super fluent, but I learned enough to be able to travel around Japan and to learn more. And, my first year in Japan, I loved it so much. I thought Japan was just such an interesting country that I decided to come again in college for a second year of exchange. And then after I graduated from college in California, I decided to come to Japan for the third time and actually start working up in northern Japan.
Do you have a favorite Japanese word?
Japanese what?
Word.
Favorite Japanese word? Oh, gosh.
Or any expression.
Oh.
Would do.
I think that probably my very favorite Japanese word is actually a dialectic word from Yamagata. It's very local, but if somebody asks you how are you doing recently, and you say, oh, I'm really busy, you would say, yeah, 最近すったらばったらしてる. すったらばったら. And even though you might have no idea what that means, it sounds like you're busy. It does. It literally sounds like, whoa. Yeah, すったらばったらしてる. Yeah, すったらばったらしてる. Yeah, 最近. Like it's a great expression, but it's only used in a very, in the northern part of Japan. Really, they don't say it down in Kansai, in the Osaka area, or any place else.
ダニエルさんは日本語は、山形弁を喋られるんですか？
そうだね、山形弁が大好きです。I love the northern dialect of Japan. I've always been interested in dialects because I'm from America. And in America, maybe half of the people in America speak with some sort of an accent or a dialect, because we do have some regional dialects, like the southern, the southern accent and the northeastern accent. And we also have many immigrants in America. So there are people who speak with like a sort of a Spanish accent or some kind of a European accent or an Asian accent. And ever since I was a little kid, I was surrounded by these people. And I was always interested, why do people talk differently? And it's because they're from different places, they have different experiences, and it's just like very musical, it's very rhythmic. I enjoyed it very much. So when I came to Japan, even though Japan is the same size as California, Japan has all kinds of little dialects, like the Kansai dialect around Osaka, and the Kyushu dialect around the island of Kyushu. And then northern Japan is called Tohoku, not including Hokkaido, but you have Tohoku, which is the 6 prefectures north of Tokyo on the very northern tip of Honshu Island. Those 6 prefectures speak Tohoku dialect. And it's a rich dialect, a lot of interesting history, and it's very, each town usually has several of its own expressions, which is it's just fascinating to me.
なぜ山形弁を学ぶことになったのか、日本語でお答えいただいてもいいですか？
これ日本語でいいですか？
日本語でお願いします。
いや、それはやっぱり住めば都ですね。私は大学卒業し て、大学卒業したのが1981年なんだけれども、3度目日本に来ることになりまして、前は2回留学しましたけれども、今度はやっぱり仕事しに来なくちゃと思ってて、で教育文部省に申し込んで英語指導主事助手として仕事やってみたいなと思ってて、でたまたま受かったなのが山形県なんです。私は山形県教育委員会英語指導主事助手、として呼ばれまして、で当時はですね、そういう外国人の英語の先生って非常に少なかったんですよ、まだ全国。今は5500人以上もいらっしゃるんですけども、全国。当時はもう70人しかいなかったんですよね。だから各市町村にもいなかった、各都道府県に1人か2人ぐらいしかいなかったんですね。で僕は山形県にとっては初めての外国人の英語の先生だったんです。もうやっぱりね、住めば都、毎日出張してあちこちで英語を教えていたんだけれども、やっぱり地元の人たちと話せばやっぱり出てくるんですよね。いろんな面白い表現、例えばそうだね、山形の代表的な、キーワードは「んだ」っていう言葉ですね。ご存知ですか？
いや、ちょっとわかんないです。
知らない？
わかんない。
んだっていうのがそうですって意味なんですね。
どうやって使うんですか、それ？例えば
だから人の話聞いてる時にそうだねそうだねって書いてんだんだってかこう言うんですね。Yeah, you can say it twice in a row and it's okay. And if you really want to emphasize that you get it, you can go dun 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 like that. And like you can say that in regular Japanese too. You can say so, right? And you can say dun 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 dun. That's exactly the same, but it's just a different word.
Right.
And the opposite. In other words, if you say so desu, you can say da. But if you say so janai, you say ne. Serious. It's true. Ne means so jane. Yeah. So if you want to say like, wow, I get it. Yes, you go da. If you say no, that's not different, you go ne. And if you say no way, you have to go nin like that. So it's a really it's a very musical sort of dialect, and it's really cute. I mean, I don't want to call it. I don't want to say that it's just cute or anything like that, but it is a fascinating language because there's so much history, there's so much local orientation to it, and you know Yamagata. Have you ever been to Yamagata?
I took my driver's license in
Oh,
Yamagata,
did you really?
which a lot of Japanese uni students
That
do.
is very popular because
When I was like 20.
yeah. There's so many kids from other prefectures who come up to Yamagata to get their driver's license.
Yeah.
They say it's easier to get your driver's license
It
in
was
Yamagata.
easier, it was cheaper.
And it was cheaper, yes. If you do it in Tokyo, it's really expensive. But if you go to Yamagata for a week or 10 days or whatever it is, it's much cheaper.
Yeah.
That's true. So you've been to Yamagata, so you know what it's like. It's very rural. It's very agricultural. A lot of mountains, a lot of rivers. It's just a beautiful, beautiful place. And I mean, if you like nature, I love nature. I like climbing mountains. I like fishing in rivers. I like camping. And people in Yamagata in the fall, they make little campfires along the side of the river, and then they bring a big pot and they make imoni.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's a great potato. It's kind of a potato and beef stew. It's really you know imoni.
I understand what that is, but I have never tried.
Oh, you gotta go. You gotta go up in the fall, and just invite yourself in and say, hey, can I have some of this? It's really, really delicious. And I often talk about Yamagata. Some people get bored with me, I'm sure, but Yamagata is probably if you like food, Yamagata is one of the best places to visit. The food up there is incredible.
What are the foods you recommend from Yamagata?
Almost everything. The only thing they can't grow or they can't really produce up there is citrus fruits because it's too cold in the wintertime. The citrus trees would die. But they have all kinds of fruit. They got apples, they got persimmons, they got grapes, they got watermelon, they got peaches, they got pears. The most famous is cherries. The Yamagata cherries are really famous, and those are really good too. But not only fruit, they grow all kinds of vegetables. Wonderful, every kind of vegetable you can imagine. They grow a lot of rice, very good, very kind of high-priced rice in Yamagata. Plus, they also have very large beef and pork production industries up there. They produce a lot of really high-quality beef and pork. They're working on chicken right now, but they're still not making too much headway there. It's a kind of a cold climate, and chickens don't really like cold climates too much. I know that for a fact. I used to raise chickens.
All right. So you've lived in Yamagata, Osaka, and Japan, in Tokyo.
I've been, I have lived in Nara, Osaka, Kyoto, Sado, Yamagata, and then briefly I lived down in Kanagawa, but mainly, Tokyo after that.
What's the best place for you to live in?
Oh, I like them all. And for my work, I've been to all 47 prefectures, many times each. I just love traveling. I love seeing new places. I love going back to places I've been to before. I could go to Kyoto 1,000 times and never see everything, But if I was going to just live there and not do anything, except just hang out every day, I think I would probably go back to Yamagata. Yeah, my wife is from up there, and it's just so calm and quiet, and the people are so cool, and the food is so good. And I don't really mind the cold. I don't really mind the snow. I'm from Southern California, but I think it's kind of interesting. I learned how to ski up there, so that was kind of fun. Yeah.
All right. Wow. So Yamagata, you pick Yamagata to place.
I would, in fact, my wife and I are talking about it. We might move back there because I'm getting closer and closer to, retirement age. I don't know if I'll ever completely retire, but I could see myself living in Yamagata for the rest of my life easily. It's just I just really like it there.
Is there anything that you still do not understand about Japanese culture?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I sort of understand most parts of Japanese culture, but there are certain parts that I don't agree with. Just one simple, easy to understand example would be the senpai-kohai relationship. Senpai-kohai, in other words, upperclassmen, lowerclassmen, or that also applies to companies and things like that. If somebody is in a company like a year or two longer than you, they're considered your senpai, and if you came in a couple of years after them, you're the kohai. And so you basically, if you're the kohai, you have to listen to everything the senpai says. And the reason for that, and it's actually a part of Confucianism, is that people who have come first, they know the ropes, and it's their job to lead and to instruct the people who come after them. And that's a really beautiful concept, ideally. The problem is in schools and in companies, the senpai-kohai thing, the guys who are the senpai, they take advantage of that, unfortunately. Not all of them, of course, but a lot of them do, and they use their senpai status to order their underlings around, and that can get really mean. Sometimes. I was on the judo team in high school, and I also did judo in college, and I was always a kohai because I was always the young guy. And these guys, I was usually the same age as these upperclassmen, and they were ordering me around and telling me to, do this, do that, and kind of stuff. And I'm going hey, be cool. I was kind of like, don't threaten me, dude. I will fight back. I will punch back. I'm an American. You better watch out. Because if you get too insulting with Americans get real upset. So I had to hold that down in me while I was, on the judo team, stuff like that. But and I get it from a philosophical standpoint. Ideally speaking, senpai-kohai relationships, if they are properly followed, it's a great way for the younger people to learn from the older people. But if the older person is taking advantage of his status and he's just ordering you around to show how strong he is or something like that, that's a perversion of the senpai-kohai relationship. So I understand it and I put up with it, but I don't really agree with it. That's just me. I'm sorry. Yeah. It's for example, in a military situation, even in the military, in the United States, in the military, if you disagree with a superior officer, you can say that. You can tell him, hey, sir, I don't think that's correct. And he can't yell at you just because he's your superior officer. He has to explain his thinking. He has to help you understand why he made such an order. Otherwise, as an underling, you don't necessarily have to follow all the orders, especially if you think they're illegal or if you think they are morally wrong. You don't have to follow them. That's the way the U.S. military is today. The Japanese military, I don't think so. I don't think they've gotten to that point yet. They should, but it might take another 50 or 100 years, I hope.
Maybe that leads to the next, aka last question. Simply put, what's the biggest difference between USA and Japan?
Simply put, the biggest difference between USA and Japan, well, the size of the country, obviously, and the language. And again, this senpai kohai thing is very different. It's one of the biggest differences that you can point to. I think, though, if you really want to drill down on it, Americans they think of themselves as very independent, and they are. They are very independent, and that's okay. It's okay to be independent and to be free thinking and stuff like that. But that also leads to proper debate. If you're independent, even if you're younger than somebody, you can say, hey, I disagree with you. I think you're wrong. I think we should talk about this. If they have a debate, they will eventually work it out. Whereas if your senpai kohai thing is too strong or too strict, no matter what the senpai says, kohai really he's not allowed to say anything. And that's not a real good, it's not a good basis for democracy. It's not a good basis for democracy. So I think that the senpai kohai thing should be, they should lessen that emphasis on that and then work more on this, let's talk this out kind of thing. And that America has always been very good at that, except for the last 7 or 8 years. And right now, both sides are demonizing each other so profoundly. It's going to be difficult for America to go back to this debate culture that we used to have up until 2016 or so. We can debate, we could disagree, we could agree to disagree, but recently it's gotten really nasty.
So this is also getting to another point that's one of the big differences compared to States. So Japanese people don't want to talk about politics. We don't mention politics, and it's not well seen.
True.
What do you think about the maybe culture or its custom? How would you see it?
Some cultures like to talk politics, and some cultures don't like to talk politics, and that probably is mainly a historical. The reason for that is historical more than anything else. America has a long history of debates and confrontation in the democratic system. Japan's history, although Japan is a thoroughly democratic country at this point, the history of Japan's democracy is still relatively short, only since World War II, basically, and it started a little bit earlier, but it got shut down by the military. So there's still a bit of a hesitancy amongst the Japanese to talk about politics very openly. I mean, if you're on TV, like me, I can talk about it a little bit more openly because people want to hear other people's opinions, but they're very hesitant to express their own because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. They don't want to step on other people's toes. Japanese people are polite to a fault. Sometimes they're too polite because if you hesitate too much and you're trying to be nice all the time, you're going to make your own personality rather bland. And that's something I talk about in my speeches quite a bit. Japanese people are so they practice self-deprecation, which is kenson in Japanese. They practice it to such a degree that sometimes they really can't talk about themselves at all if in a polite situation. It's considered rude to talk about yourself in polite conversation if you don't really know the person that you're talking to. So they all hesitate, and they all say, "Oh no, I have nothing to say about that," even though they have a lot of things to say about it. It's not that Japanese people are unemotional at all. Many foreign people come to Japan and they say, "Oh, Japanese people have no emotion," and I definitely disagree with that. Japanese people are amongst the most emotional people I know. They're very emotional, but they're very good at hiding it. They're very good at not expressing emotions and opinions and things like that amongst, in front of people they don't know. But if you give them a couple of beers, a little bit of sake, and say, "Let's talk about this," they will go to town. They'll have a great conversation at the pubs and at the bars. And you can learn more about Japanese politics and more about Japanese culture in the pubs and the bars than you can just about any place else. They're very expressive and very emotional, but you have to loosen them up first. Americans, you don't need to loosen them up at all. They'll tell you their whole life story without a drop of sake. That's just the way they are. Americans are very open, they love talking about themselves, which Japanese people are not so comfortable with. That's a big cultural difference too.
Interesting. Is there any other talking points? So that was all from my side. Is there any other talking points you usually use?
You see this? You see this Ryokudo here?
Yeah.
That we're on? This is a public walkway between the station and the neighborhoods over here. And one of the things I really love about Japan is, like, every time I walk on this road, and I walk on this road several times a week, it's always clean. There's no trash. There's nobody urinating on the side. It's clean. I mean, there's people sweeping. Look at all the plants along the way. People replant this stuff like every couple of weeks. There's a crew of people, and they're all in their 70s and 80s, and they come in here and they're like, this is their garden. I suppose that the city gives them a little bit of money, to buy the plants and things like that. But this is a labor of love, keeping your neighborhood clean, keeping it pleasant, planting all these little plants so that people can, just people walking by, they can enjoy it. I think this is one of the nicest things about living in Japan. No matter where you go, people are really conscientious of what their town looks like and what their neighborhood looks like. And they want to make it, they want to leave a good impression. Even though they never talk about it, they just do it. So they don't have to talk about it. They express themselves by their actions. Wonderful. This Ryokudo is one of the best in all of Tokyo, I think. Let me loose, I could talk for 44 years, I've been here so long, I've got so many stories. I've been on TV for so many years. I mean, I've been forced to talk about so many things for so many years. I could really talk for a long time, but I think I should probably just kind of leave it at that and let you edit it all down to 30 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever. And then,
All right.
Okay.
Daniel, thanks for your time.
Take care.